The small scout ship Horizon drifted silently through the void, its engines running on minimal power. Lieutenant James Cooper sat in the pilot's seat, his eyes fixed on the sensor displays. This far from human space, discoveries were rare but potentially valuable. Cooper had been mapping this sector for 3 weeks now, and the monotony was starting to wear on him. Another day, another empty patch of space, he muttered to himself. Cooper was about to mark this section complete when a faint energy signature appeared at the edge of his sensors. He straightened in his seat, suddenly alert. The signature wasn't consistent with any known natural phenomenon. "Computer, analyze that energy pattern," he commanded. Analysis complete. The ship's AI responded in its flat voice. Energy signature matches no known natural or artificial patterns in database. Source appears to be stationary. Cooper's heart beat faster. New discoveries meant promotions, and he was due for one. He adjusted his course and guided the Horizon toward the mysterious energy source. As he approached, the ship's external cameras revealed a structure floating in space. It was clearly artificial, a space station of some kind, but unlike any human design. Its architecture featured smooth curves and sharp angles that seemed to defy conventional engineering. Most notably, it appeared to be abandoned. "This is Lieutenant James Cooper of the Earth Exploration Fleet. I've discovered an unknown structure at coordinates 357 to 890 to 104. Moving in for closer inspection." Cooper recorded his message but didn't send it. Communications this far out were delayed by hours, and protocol gave scouts discretion to investigate non-hostile discoveries. He'd submit a full report later. The Horizon circled the station slowly. Cooper noted that there were no visible weapon systems, and several docking ports matched standard configurations used throughout the galaxy. After running safety checks, he decided to dock and explore. "Computer, maintain ship readiness. I'm going aboard," he said, strapping a sidearm to his hip and grabbing his exploration kit. The docking process went smoothly, suggesting the station still had functioning systems. When the airlock completed its cycle, Cooper stepped into the station, his helmet's lights illuminating the dark corridor ahead. The air was breathable, according to his suit's sensors, but he kept his helmet on as a precaution. The station's interior was surprisingly intact. There were no signs of battle or hasty evacuation, just emptiness, as if the occupants had simply left one day. The architecture was elegant but practical, with markings in a script Cooper didn't recognize. Following the main corridor, Cooper reached what appeared to be a central control room. The moment he stepped inside, lights flickered on, and dormant systems began to activate. "Hello," he called out, knowing it was foolish but unable to help himself. Only silence answered him, but several screens around the room had come to life, displaying information in the same unknown script. Cooper approached one of the terminals and noticed an interface that looked similar enough to standard galactic designs. He pulled out his universal translator and attached it to the console. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," he whispered. The translator took several minutes to process the language, but eventually began converting the alien text to English. Most of it was incomprehensible technical jargon, but Cooper could make out references to ship designs and weapon systems. His curiosity growing, Cooper navigated through the files until he found something that made him pause. The screen displayed what appeared to be schematics for a massive warship, unlike anything Cooper had ever seen. According to the translator, this vessel was designated as Project Terminus. The more Cooper read, the more his disbelief grew. If the data was correct, this ship design incorporated technologies that should be impossible. Power systems that could harness energy directly from subspace. Weapons capable of disrupting the atomic bonds of target materials. Defensive shields that could adapt to any form of attack. "This can't be real," Cooper said to himself. "These specs violate at least 3 laws of physics." But the data was comprehensive, detailed schematics, material requirements, construction techniques, and theoretical frameworks explaining how each system would function. The unknown aliens had been planning to build this ship, but something had stopped them. Cooper continued searching until he found what appeared to be a log entry. The translator struggled with it, but the message was clear enough. Project Terminus suspended by order of the High Council. The potential capabilities of such a vessel exceed acceptable parameters for controlled warfare. It is the Council's judgment that no species should possess such power. All research is to be sealed, and the development facility abandoned. The date stamp indicated the message was over 300 years old. As Cooper continued exploring the database, he found another file, a message that hadn't been properly deleted. After translation, it read, "I cannot destroy this work. Though the Council fears what we have created, I fear what may come from the darkness between stars. Should any worthy species find this, may they use it more wisely than we would have. The safeguards have been removed. The knowledge is yours, but heed our warning. What can destroy enemies can destroy worlds." Cooper sat back, his mind racing. The aliens had created designs for a warship so powerful they'd scared themselves into abandoning it. And now he had found it. He quickly began downloading all the data to his ship's computer. If even half of what he was seeing was feasible, this could revolutionize human defense capabilities. The Earth fleet had been at peace for decades, but tensions with several alien federations had been growing. A technological advantage like this could ensure humanity's safety, or trigger a new arms race. The download completed, Cooper did one final sweep of the station before returning to his ship. As the horizon disconnected from the docking port, Cooper looked back at the abandoned structure. Whatever species had built that station had reached for a power they ultimately deemed too dangerous. Now he had to decide what to do with their legacy. Back aboard his ship, Cooper reviewed the data more carefully. The designs were elegant but complex. Some of the technologies described seemed to operate on principles human science had only theorized about. Building this warship would require resources and expertise beyond what any single person could manage. When Cooper arrived at Earth Central Station 3 weeks later, he immediately requested a meeting with Admiral Wilson, the head of the fleet's Research and Development Division. The meeting didn't go as he'd hoped. "These designs are fascinating, Lieutenant," Admiral Wilson said, flipping through Cooper's report, "but clearly impossible. Our top engineers would tell you the same." "Sir, I've spent weeks studying the data. The theoretical framework is sound. We've just never approached the problems from this angle," Cooper argued. The Admiral sighed. "Cooper, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but these specs describe a ship with more firepower than our entire fleet combined, protected by shields our weapons couldn't dent, powered by an energy source we barely understand. It's science fiction." "But sir—" "Enough," Wilson said firmly. "I'll have our team review the data, but don't get your hopes up. This was probably some alien species thought experiment, or worse, propaganda meant to be found. Focus on your actual duties, Lieutenant." Cooper left the meeting frustrated but not surprised. The military was notoriously resistant to outside ideas. As he walked through the station's crowded corridors, his mind was already forming a new plan. If the official channels wouldn't take this seriously, he knew someone who would. Dr. Lisa Reed had been his friend since academy days, and she now worked at the Frontier Engineering Corps. If anyone could make sense of these designs, it would be her. Cooper tapped his communicator. "Lisa, it's James. I found something you need to see. Something that shouldn't exist, but it does." Dr. Lisa Reed's workshop was a mess of tools, half-built machines, and digital displays showing complex equations. Unlike the clean, organized labs of Earth Central, Lisa preferred what she called creative chaos. It was this unconventional approach that had drawn Cooper to her in the first place. "So let me get this straight," Lisa said, her eyes never leaving the holographic display of the alien schematics. "You found these designs on an abandoned station, and the military just dismissed them." Cooper nodded. "Admiral Wilson thinks it's either alien fiction or some kind of trap. He wouldn't even let the engineering team do a proper analysis." Lisa snorted. "Typical. The military only likes new ideas when they come from inside their own ranks. She zoomed in on one section of the design. But this is incredible, James. If these power calculations are correct, this ship could generate more energy than our entire fleet combined. So you think it could work? Cooper asked, hope rising in his voice. Lisa ran her fingers through her short red hair, a habit when she was deep in thought. Theoretically, yes. The physics checks out, even if it pushes against what we currently understand as possible. The real question is whether we could actually build it with our current technology and materials. For the next week, Lisa dove into the alien data, barely sleeping or eating. Cooper brought her food and occasionally forced her to rest, but her excitement was infectious. On the 8th day, she called Cooper with news. I figured it out, she said, her voice hushed but excited. We can build this ship, James, not exactly as designed. Some of the materials they specify don't exist in our part of the galaxy, but I found substitutes that should work nearly as well. Cooper's heart raced. Are you serious? Completely. But we'll need help, and we can't go through official channels. If the military gets involved, this will get buried in bureaucracy for decades. What do you suggest? Lisa's smile was visible even through the video call. I know some people who might be interested in a private engineering project. 2 days later, Cooper and Lisa met at a small diner near the edge of Earth Central. They were joined by 2 others. Mark Davis, a burly man with a thick beard who had once been the military's top weapons specialist before a disagreement with leadership led to his retirement. And Tom Wilson, a thin, nervous-looking AI systems expert who had worked with Lisa on several frontier projects. This is highly illegal, you know, Tom said after Lisa had explained the project. Using military resources for a private venture. We could all end up in prison. We're not using military resources, Lisa corrected. We're using discarded parts and materials that have been written off. Technically, they're waste. Mark laughed, a deep rumbling sound. She's got you there, Tom. Besides, if this ship works like the design suggests, they'll be pinning medals on us, not throwing us in cells. And if it doesn't work? Tom asked. Then we've wasted some time and salvaged materials, Cooper said. No harm done. After much discussion, they all agreed to join the project. Mark knew of an abandoned mining facility on a remote asteroid in the Kuiper Belt that would serve as their construction site. Tom had access to several decommissioned AI cores that could be reprogrammed for the ship's systems. Lisa had already begun adapting the alien designs to work with human technology. Over the next 6 months, the team worked in secret. They created shell companies to acquire the materials they couldn't salvage, using Cooper's military salary and Lisa's research grants to fund the project. The mining facility, once cleared of old equipment, provided a perfect hidden dry dock for their construction. The ship took shape slowly. Unlike the sleek, streamlined vessels of the Earth fleet, this design was angular and asymmetrical, with sections that seemed to jut out at random angles. But Lisa assured them that every aspect of the design served a purpose, optimizing energy flow and weapon deployment. The power core is the most challenging part, Lisa explained one day as they worked. According to the schematics, it taps directly into subspace, drawing energy from the quantum fluctuations that exist between dimensions. Our science has theorized this is possible, but we've never successfully built a device to do it. And you think we can? Cooper asked. Lisa patted a large cylindrical device that hummed with a strange, almost musical tone. I already have. This is a scaled-down version of the core described in the alien data. It's only operating at about 10% capacity, but that's still enough to power this entire facility. The weapon systems were Mark's domain. He had adapted the alien designs to create what he called phase disruptors, weapons that didn't just damage targets but temporarily altered the atomic bonds of the materials they hit. It's not quite as powerful as what was in the original specs, he admitted, but it still leagues beyond anything in our current arsenal. One shot from this could disable a standard cruiser. Tom, meanwhile, had been integrating the ship's AI systems. The aliens designed this ship to be mostly automated, he explained. A crew of 5 could operate it, compared to the hundreds needed for our current capital ships. As the construction progressed, Cooper couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The ship, which they had started calling Impossibility as a joke that stuck, was becoming more than just a theoretical project. It was becoming real, and with its reality came questions about what they would do with it once completed. "We'll turn it over to the fleet, of course," Cooper said when Lisa raised the question one evening. "Once they see it works, they'll have to take it seriously." Lisa didn't seem convinced. "And if they decide it's too dangerous? If they try to dismantle it or lock it away for study?" Before Cooper could answer, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Tom rushed to a console, his fingers flying over the controls. "We've got a problem," he said, his voice tight. "There's a Galactic Alliance patrol ship in the area. They're scanning for the source of our energy emissions." "Can they detect us?" Mark asked. Tom shook his head. "Not yet. We're masking most of our signature, but if they come closer..." "How long until the Impossibility is operational?" Cooper asked Lisa. She hesitated. "The main systems are functioning, but we haven't tested the engines or weapons in real conditions. We'd be flying blind." Cooper made a quick decision. "Shut down all non-essential systems. We'll let them pass by, then resume work once they're gone." The team complied, and the facility fell into near darkness, the only light coming from emergency systems and the eerie glow of the power core, which couldn't be fully shut down without a lengthy procedure. For 3 tense days, they waited as the Alliance ship conducted its patrol. The ship came close enough at one point that they could see it through the facility's observation windows, a sleek, official vessel with the Alliance emblem emblazoned on its hull. On the 4th day, Tom reported that the ship had finally moved on. They logged an anomalous energy reading, but classified it as a sensor malfunction. "We got lucky." As they powered the systems back up, Cooper received an urgent message on his personal communicator. It was from an old friend in the fleet, warning him that strange reports were coming in from the outer colonies. Unknown ships had been spotted at the edge of human space, and several outposts had gone dark. "We need to accelerate our timeline," Cooper told the team, showing them the message. "Something's happening out there, and we might need the Impossibility sooner than we thought." Lisa nodded grimly. "I'll focus on getting the engines and defensive systems online. Mark, we need those weapons ready, even if they're not at full capacity." "What about the Alliance?" Tom asked. "If they come back, we'll deal with that if it happens," Cooper said. "Right now, our priority is finishing this ship." As the team returned to work with renewed urgency, Cooper stood looking at the Impossibility through the control room window. The ship that shouldn't exist was nearly complete. Now they just had to hope they would finish it in time. The emergency broadcast woke Cooper from a brief rest. He had been sleeping in 4-hour shifts for the past week as they rushed to complete the Impossibility. The message was being transmitted on all channels. Priority 1. "This is Admiral Wilson of the Earth Defense Fleet. All available ships are ordered to converge on the Proxima Colony. We are under attack by unknown forces. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Cooper played the message twice before calling the others to the command center. Their tired faces reflected his own concern as they gathered around the communications console. "It started," Mark said grimly, his usual jovial manner gone. Tom looked nervous. "The Proxima Colony is home to over 2 million people. If they're calling for all available ships, then the situation is dire," Lisa finished. She turned to Cooper. "What's our status?" Cooper pulled up the latest diagnostic reports on the main screen. Main power is at 86% capacity. Hull integrity is solid. Navigation and life support are fully operational. Defensive shields are functioning but untested at full power. "And weapons?" Lisa asked, looking at Mark. The weapons specialist frowned. The main phase disruptors are installed but calibrated to only 60% of designed capacity. We haven't had time to fine-tune the targeting systems. Secondary weapons are operational but limited in range. What about the engines? Cooper asked. The subspace drive is online, Lisa replied. We've run simulations, but we haven't taken it beyond this asteroid's orbit. In theory, it should be faster than any ship in the Earth fleet, but I can't guarantee it won't tear itself apart the first time we push it hard. Cooper took a deep breath. The impossibility wasn't ready, but it might be ready enough. How long to Proxima at maximum speed? Lisa made some quick calculations. About 14 hours. A standard fleet cruiser would take 3 days. Then we don't have a choice, Cooper said. We have to go. Now. No one argued. They had all seen the reports coming in from the outer colonies over the past few days. Strange ships appearing without warning. Communications going dark. The few images that had been transmitted showed vessels unlike any known design. Black, insect-like craft that moved with unnatural precision. Within an hour, they had the impossibility prepped for departure. The ship hummed with energy as its systems came fully online for the first time. From the outside, it looked incomplete, with sections of hull plating missing and exposed conduits visible in places. But its core systems, the ones that mattered, were functional. I'm setting course for Proxima, Cooper announced as they took their positions on the small bridge. Tom, keep the communications channels open. We need to know what we're flying into. What about the fleet? Lisa asked. Do we announce ourselves? Cooper shook his head. Not yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first. The impossibility eased out of the mining facility that had been its birthplace. Its engines glowed with an eerie blue light as they powered up. Then, with a flash that briefly outshone the distant sun, the ship vanished into subspace. The journey was tense. Reports continued to come in, each more alarming than the last. The unknown attackers, which survivors were calling the Vex, had destroyed 3 Earth cruisers with minimal effort. Their weapons cut through standard shields as if they weren't there. Their hulls absorbed direct hits from Earth's most powerful weapons with barely a scratch. Approaching Proxima system, Tom announced after what felt like an eternity, dropping out of subspace in 3, 2, 1. The view screen flashed as the impossibility returned to normal space. The scene that greeted them was one of chaos and destruction. The space around Proxima was filled with debris, the remains of Earth ships and orbital platforms. In the distance, the colony itself was visible, its once bright lights now flickering and partial. And there, moving methodically through the wreckage, were 5 black ships. They resembled giant insects with multiple appendage-like structures that served unknown purposes. Each was at least twice the size of the largest Earth cruiser. They're attacking the colony's main dome, Tom reported, horror in his voice. Life signs are dropping rapidly. Cooper made a split-second decision. Battle stations. Mark, ready the phase disruptors. Target the nearest Vex ship. What about the fleet? Lisa asked. There's no time, Cooper replied. If those domes fall, everyone in the colony dies. The impossibility moved forward, accelerating toward the nearest Vex vessel. Its presence hadn't been noticed yet, a small blessing given their unfinished state. We're in range, Mark announced. Phase disruptors charged and ready. Cooper took a deep breath. Fire. The impossibility shuddered slightly as its main weapons discharged for the first time. Beams of blue-white energy lanced out, striking the Vex ship directly on what appeared to be its central section. Unlike standard weapons, which would have exploded on impact, the phase disruptors seemed to pass through the ship's hull, creating a rippling effect like water disturbed by a stone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Vex ship's movements became erratic. Parts of its hull began to distort and collapsed as the atomic bonds holding its materials together temporarily weakened. Secondary explosions erupted across its surface as internal systems failed catastrophically. Direct hit, Mark shouted, jubilant. Their hull integrity is failing. The remaining Vex ships immediately changed course, abandoning their attack on the colony and turning toward the impossibility. Their response was faster than any human vessel could have managed. "They've seen us," Tom warned. "All 4 remaining ships are on an intercept course." "Evasive maneuvers," Cooper ordered. "Ready the next shot." The impossibility banked sharply, its experimental engines responding with a speed that pushed them all back into their seats. The Vex ships fired, bright red beams that sliced through space where the impossibility had been moments before. One beam grazed their port side, sending alarms blaring throughout the ship. Lisa's fingers flew over her console, redirecting power. "Shields holding at 78%, she reported. "That was a direct hit with enough power to destroy a standard cruiser, and we survived." "The designs were right," Cooper said, a grim smile on his face. "Ready another shot, Mark. Let's see if we can make it 2 for 2. The impossibility turned sharply, bringing its main weapons to bear on the lead Vex ship. This time, the enemy was ready, performing an impossible maneuver that should have torn any ship apart. The phase disruptor beam missed its center mass, instead grazing its outer hull. But even that glancing blow was enough to cause visible damage. Part of the Vex ship's outer structure warped and tore away, venting atmosphere and debris into space. "They're coordinating," Tom mourned, "attempting to surround us." Cooper studied the tactical display. The Vex ships were indeed maneuvering to box in the impossibility, using their superior numbers to their advantage. "Lisa, how much power can you give to the engines?" Cooper asked. "We're already at 90%, she replied. "I can push it to full capacity, but I can't guarantee the structural integrity will hold." "Do it," Cooper ordered. "Mark, target all 4 ships with secondary weapons. We're going to punch straight through their formation." As the impossibility's engines surged to full power, the ship shot forward at a speed no human vessel had ever achieved. The Vex ships fired repeatedly, but most of their shots missed as the impossibility's trajectory became nearly impossible to predict. The few hits that did connect were absorbed by the ship's advanced shields, which flared bright blue with each impact but held firm. As they passed through the enemy formation, Mark fired the secondary weapons, smaller versions of the phase disruptors that struck all 4 Vex ships simultaneously. The damage was less catastrophic than the main weapons had caused, but it was enough to disrupt the Vex coordination. "We're clear," Tom announced, coming around for another pass. Cooper checked the ship's status. Despite the intensity of the brief battle, the impossibility was holding together. The alien design was proving its worth beyond all expectations. "Open a channel to the Earth fleet," Cooper ordered. "It's time they knew we were here." As Tom established the connection, Cooper gazed out at the colony they had just saved. The impossible warship had faced its first test and passed. But this was only the beginning of what promised to be a much larger conflict. Admiral Wilson's face on the view screen was a mixture of shock, anger, and reluctant admiration. The aging military leader had been speechless for several seconds after Cooper had explained the impossibility's origins. "Let me get this straight, Lieutenant," Wilson finally said. "You not only disobeyed direct orders by pursuing this alien technology, but you also stole military resources, recruited other personnel into your scheme, and built an unauthorized warship in secret." Cooper stood firm. "With respect, Admiral, we primarily used discarded materials and personal resources, and that unauthorized warship just saved the Proxima Colony when 3 of our most advanced cruisers were destroyed." The Admiral's jaw tightened. "That's beside the point, Cooper. What you did was necessary," Lisa interrupted, stepping into view beside Cooper. "The Vex ships would have destroyed the colony if we hadn't intervened. We've all seen the reports. 6 outer colonies attacked in the past week, and conventional weapons barely scratched their hulls." Admiral Wilson sighed heavily. "Dr. Reed, I expected better from someone with your reputation." "My reputation is built on following the science wherever it leads," Lisa replied calmly. And this alien technology led to a ship that can actually fight these invaders. There was a long pause as Wilson seemed to weigh his options. The battle over Proxima had been recorded from multiple sources. The footage of the impossibility destroying one Vex ship and damaging 4 others was already spreading throughout the fleet. In a time of crisis, results mattered more than regulations. "Report to Earth Central immediately," Wilson finally ordered. "Your ship will be impounded for study, and all of you will face a formal inquiry." But he added, his tone softening slightly, "I'm also ordering a full engineering team to meet you there. If this technology is as effective as it appears, we need to understand it immediately." When the transmission ended, the bridge was silent for a moment. "That went better than expected," Mark commented with a wry smile. Tom looked less convinced. "They're going to take the ship away from us, aren't they?" Cooper nodded slowly. "Probably, but they'll have to acknowledge its value first. And that means the design will be put to use, which was always the goal." The journey to Earth Central took 9 hours, a trip that would have taken a standard cruiser nearly a week. When they arrived, a full military escort was waiting, along with dozens of engineers and scientists eager to examine the impossibility. As predicted, the ship was immediately impounded, and Cooper's team was separated for questioning. Cooper himself was interrogated for 12 straight hours by military intelligence, explaining in exhaustive detail how he had found the alien station and every step they had taken to build the impossibility. On the 3rd day of the inquiry, Cooper was summoned to a high-security conference room deep within Earth Central. To his surprise, he found Lisa, Mark, and Tom already there, along with Admiral Wilson and several high-ranking officers he didn't recognize. "Please be seated, Lieutenant," Wilson said, his tone formal but less hostile than before. Once Cooper was seated, a woman in a Science Division uniform stood up. "For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Emily Wright, Chief of Xenotechnology Research. My team has spent the last 72 hours analyzing both the impossibility and the captured Vex vessel from Proxima." Dr. Wright activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed detailed scans of both ships' internal structures. "What we've discovered is unprecedented," she continued. "The underlying technology in both vessels shares key similarities. Not just similarities. In some cases, identical design philosophies and components." Cooper leaned forward, confused. "Are you saying the Vex ships and the design I found are from the same alien species?" "That appears to be the case," Dr. Wright confirmed. "There are differences, of course. The Vex ships show evidence of significant modifications and a different aesthetic approach. But at their core, both technologies stem from the same source." "That doesn't make sense," Lisa objected. "Why would the same species create both the Vex ships and the design that can defeat them?" Admiral Wilson pressed a button, and a new hologram appeared, a translation of data recovered from the damaged Vex ship. "We believe we've found the answer," he said grimly. "The Vex aren't a natural species. They appear to be artificial constructs created to serve as enforcers." "Enforcers of what?" Cooper asked. "Technological boundaries," Dr. Wright explained. "According to what we've translated, the Vex were created by an ancient species calling themselves the Founders. The Founders believed that certain technologies were too dangerous to exist, and they created the Vex to prevent lesser species from developing these technologies." The implications hit Cooper like a physical blow. "And now the Vex are attacking us because we built the impossibility, a ship using technology the Founders deemed too dangerous." "That's our current theory," Wilson confirmed. "Your discovery and use of this technology triggered some kind of alert system. The Vex attacks aren't random. They're specifically targeting human colonies because we've crossed a line the Founders drew millennia ago." The room fell silent as everyone processed this revelation. "There's more," Dr. Wright continued after a moment. "The design you found, Lieutenant Cooper, appears to be what we might call a failsafe. The message you translated suggesting the design was abandoned out of fear. We believe it wasn't fear of what other species might do with it, but fear of what might be necessary if the Vex ever malfunctioned or exceeded their programming. So the founders created the Vex as enforcers, Mark summarized, but they also created the impossibility design as a way to stop the Vex if needed. Precisely, Dr. Wright nodded. It's the ultimate check and balance. They created enforcers to prevent dangerous technology from spreading, but they also created a countermeasure in case those enforcers became a threat themselves. Cooper thought back to the mysterious message he had found on the abandoned station. I fear what may come from the darkness between stars. The founder who left that message, Cooper said slowly, they must have suspected that something like this might happen, that the Vex might someday target a species that didn't deserve it. Admiral Wilson's expression was grim. And now humanity is caught in the middle of an ancient alien conflict. The Vex won't stop attacking until we abandon this technology, or until we defeat them. Can we defeat them? Tom asked, his voice small in the large room. All eyes turned to Lisa, who had been studying the technical readouts carefully. The impossibility proved we can hurt them, she said. But it's just one ship, and it's not even completed to the full design specifications. We were lucky at Proxima. Then we need more than luck, Wilson declared. We need more ships like the Impossibility. Cooper looked at the Admiral in surprise. You want to build more? Wilson nodded firmly. The Defense Council has authorized the immediate construction of 5 additional vessels based on the alien design. Dr. Reed, you and your team will work with our engineers to refine the technology and oversee the construction. And what about us? Cooper asked, gesturing to himself and his friends. You, Lieutenant, along with Mr. Davis and Mr. Wilson, are being officially reassigned to a new division, the Advanced Defensive Technologies Unit. Your job will be to train the crews who will operate these new ships. Your unorthodox methods may have broken regulations, but they've also given humanity its only effective weapon against the Vex. Cooper felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. They weren't being court-martialed after all. There's one more thing, Dr. Wright added, her expression troubled. Our analysis of the Vex data suggests that these aren't all of them. The ships we've encountered appear to be scouts or advance forces. If we don't find a way to end this conflict soon, we may face a much larger invasion. The meeting concluded with a sense of both urgency and purpose. As Cooper and his team left the conference room, they knew that their discovery had forever changed humanity's place in the galaxy. The warship that shouldn't exist had become humanity's best hope for survival. So, Mark said as they walked toward their new quarters, from criminals to humanity's last hope in 3 days. Not bad. Cooper smiled, but his mind was already racing ahead to the challenges they faced. The impossibility had proven itself in battle, but the war was just beginning. And somewhere out there, the mysterious founders who had created both the Vex and the means to defeat them might still be watching, waiting to see what humanity would do with their dangerous legacy. 6 months passed in a blur of frantic activity. The shipyards around Earth and Mars worked day and night, implementing the alien designs under Lisa's supervision. What would normally take years was compressed into months through necessity and human determination. Cooper stood in the observation deck of Earth Central, watching as the 5th and final new warship moved into formation with its siblings. They were beautiful in a strange way, each one built on the same principles as the Impossibility but refined and improved. Unlike the rough, unfinished appearance of the original, these ships had smooth, complete hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Phoenix, the Defiance, the Vengeance, the Guardian, and the Horizon, Mark said, joining Cooper at the window. Plus the original Impossibility, now fully upgraded. 6 ships against the Vex fleet. Cooper nodded. 6 ships that shouldn't exist, but they do. The past months had been difficult. The Vex attacks had intensified, striking deeper into human territory. 15 colonies had been attacked, with 7 completely destroyed despite the fleet's best efforts. Conventional weapons remained nearly useless against the alien ships. Only the Impossibility, darting from battle to battle, had managed to slow the advance. But now, they had a real fighting force. "Admiral Wilson wants to see us," Mark said, breaking into Cooper's thoughts. "The final crew selections have been made." In the Admiral's office, Cooper found Wilson looking more tired than he'd ever seen him. The war was taking its toll on everyone, but especially on those in command. "Lieutenant Cooper, or should I say Captain Cooper now," Wilson greeted him. "The final preparations are complete. All 6 ships are fully operational and their crews have completed basic training." "That's good news, sir," Cooper replied. "But basic training won't be enough against the Vex." Wilson nodded grimly. "Which is why I've approved your recommended command structure. Each ship will be led by someone who was involved with the original Impossibility project." Cooper had expected this but was still surprised to hear it confirmed. "So the assignments are final?" "Yes. You'll command the Impossibility. Dr. Reed will take the Phoenix. Her engineering expertise makes her the logical choice despite her lack of military background. Davis has the Defiance, and Wilson the Guardian. Commanders Lee and Rodriguez, who've both served alongside you in recent battles, will take the Vengeance and Horizon." The intercom on Wilson's desk buzzed. "Admiral, priority message from the outer sensor network." Wilson's face hardened. "Put it through." A holographic display appeared above the desk, showing a tactical map of the solar system. Red dots appeared at the edge, moving slowly but steadily inward. "Vex signatures detected at the system boundary," reported a tense voice. "Current count is 37 vessels, all larger than previously encountered types. Estimated time to Earth orbit, 48 hours. Cooper felt his blood run cold. 37. The largest group we faced so far was 8. "This is it," Wilson said quietly. "The main invasion force. Our intelligence suggested they were gathering for a major assault, but we didn't expect so many." "We're not ready," Cooper admitted. "The crews need more time." "Time is the one thing we don't have," Wilson interrupted. "This is the moment we've been preparing for. Captain Cooper, assemble your squadron. You launch in 3 hours." As Cooper rushed to the briefing room, where the command crews were waiting, he felt the weight of responsibility like never before. 6 ships against 37. The odds were impossible. But then again, so was the very existence of their ships. The briefing was short and to the point. Cooper laid out what they knew about the Vex force and their planned response. "We'll intercept them near the orbit of Jupiter," he explained to the assembled officers. "That gives us space to maneuver and keeps the battle away from populated areas." "What's the strategy against so many?" asked Commander Lee, a small, intense woman who had distinguished herself in previous engagements. "We use what makes our ships special," Cooper replied. "The Vex vessels are faster and more heavily armed than anything in the human fleet, except for us. We have the same technological base, which means we can match their speed and power." Lisa stepped forward. "The key is the phase disruptors. They affect the atomic structure of the Vex hulls in a way nothing else can. We've modified the targeting systems to focus multiple beams on the same point, which should increase penetration and damage." "What about their numbers advantage?" Rodriguez asked. He was a veteran of the early battles, one of the few who had survived an encounter with the Vex before the Impossibility arrived. "We stay mobile and coordinated," Cooper answered. "The Vex operate as individual units. They are powerful but predictable. We'll use squadron tactics, focusing our fire on one target at a time." The launch of the 6 ships was watched by billions across the human colonies. These strange vessels represented humanity's best, perhaps only, hope against the Vex. As they accelerated away from Earth, forming up in a tight V formation, with the Impossibility at its head, cheers erupted in mission control. Cooper felt the familiar hum of the ship around him. The bridge was more polished now, with proper stations and displays, but the heart of the vessel remained the same alien technology that had saved them at Proxima. "All ships reporting ready, Captain," Tom reported from his communication station. "Formation is holding as we accelerate." "Take us to battle speed," Cooper ordered. Let's meet them as far from Earth as possible. The journey to the intercept point took less than 10 hours, a fraction of what conventional ships would have required. As they approached, the Vex fleet became visible on their long-range sensors. "They've changed course," Lisa reported, studying the tactical display. "They're forming into an attack pattern. They know we're coming." Cooper wasn't surprised. The Vex had shown remarkable adaptability in previous encounters. "All ships, this is Captain Cooper. Final system checks now. Weapons hot, shields at maximum. Remember your training and trust your ships." These vessels were designed specifically to fight the Vex. They shouldn't exist by any normal standard of human technology. But they do, and that gives us our edge. The two fleets closed rapidly. The Vex ships were massive black shapes against the stars, their strange, organic-looking design still unsettling to human eyes. They outnumbered the human squadron by more than 6-1. "They're powering up weapons," Tom warned. "Evasive pattern Delta," Cooper commanded. "Phoenix and Defiance, target the lid ship. Guardian and Vengeance, provide covering fire. Horizon, stay in reserve and watch for flanking maneuvers." The space between the fleets lit up as the Vex fired first. Dozens of red energy beams slicing toward the human ships. But the advanced shields held as the 6 ships split apart in practiced maneuvers, presenting harder targets while maintaining their coordinated attack. The Impossibility dived directly toward the center of the Vex formation, drawing fire from multiple enemies. As the Vex concentrated on what they perceived as the greatest threat, the Phoenix and Defiance struck from opposite angles, their phase disruptors converging on a single Vex vessel. The effect was dramatic. Where the Impossibility alone had damaged Vex ships, the combined firepower of 2 improved vessels tore the enemy ship apart completely. The explosion created a momentary gap in the Vex formation, a gap Cooper immediately exploited. "All ships, follow me through. Target second layer, vessels 3 and 5. For the next several hours, space around Jupiter became a battlefield unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. The 6 human ships darted and weaved through the larger Vex fleet, using their superior coordination and targeted strikes to slowly even the odds. 3 hours into the battle, they had destroyed 11 Vex ships while losing none of their own, though all 6 vessels showed damage from repeated hits. "The Guardian's main shields are failing," Tom reported as they regrouped for another attack run. "They can't take another direct hit." Cooper made a quick decision. "Guardian, fall back to defensive position. Everyone else, form up on the Impossibility. We're going for their command ship." Lisa's voice came through the comm. "Cooper, are you sure? We've never been able to identify a command structure in their fleet." "Look at their movement patterns," Cooper replied. "The large vessel in the center never engages directly, but the others consistently move to protect it. That's our target." The 5 remaining ships formed a tight arrowhead formation, with the Impossibility at its tip. At Cooper's command, they accelerated to maximum speed, their subspace drives pushing the limits of what even their advanced hulls could withstand. The Vex responded immediately, with multiple vessels moving to intercept. But the human ships were too fast, too coordinated. They punched through the defensive screen, taking damage but maintaining their formation. "All ships, target these coordinates," Cooper ordered, highlighting a specific section of the massive central Vex vessel. "Fire phase disruptors on my mark. Now." 5 blue-white beams converged on a single point of the Vex command ship. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a ripple of energy spread across the ship's hull, followed by cascading explosions that tore through its structure. "Direct hit," Tom shouted. "Their core is destabilizing. All ships, break off and retreat to safe distance," Cooper commanded. As the human ships pulled away, the Vex command vessel erupted in a massive explosion. But what happened next was even more surprising. The remaining Vex ships suddenly ceased fire. They drifted, seemingly without purpose or direction. "They've stopped attacking," Lisa reported, wonder in her voice. All Vex vessels show power fluctuations. It's like they've been deactivated. Cooper watched in amazement as the once fearsome Vex fleet became little more than floating debris. The destruction of the command ship had somehow shut down the entire fleet. The Founders built in a failsafe, Cooper realized, just like they left the designs for our ships. They never intended the Vex to be unstoppable. As the human ships cautiously approached the dormant Vex vessels, Cooper felt a mixture of relief and unease. They had won. Humanity had survived its first encounter with a vastly superior alien force. But the technology that had saved them came from a mysterious species that had vanished long ago, leaving behind both the threat and the means to defeat it. "Captain," Tom called out, his voice tense, "I'm detecting an unusual signal coming from the remains of the Vex command ship. It's some kind of message." On the main screen, symbols appeared that Cooper recognized from the alien station where this had all begun. As the translation software processed them, a simple message appeared. "The test is complete. You have proven worthy of the legacy. We will be watching." Cooper stared at the message, a chill running down his spine. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. Somewhere out there, the Founders or their descendants were watching humanity's progress, and the warships that shouldn't exist had just announced humanity's arrival on a much larger galactic stage. As the 6 ships turned back toward Earth, carrying news of their victory, Cooper knew that everything had changed. Humanity had faced its first real interstellar threat and survived, thanks to a warship that by all normal rules of human technology shouldn't exist. But it did exist, and with it, humanity's future among the stars was secured.